Emergence Church really started as just a testimony of God's faithfulness. And I remember walking through the woods and reading Paul's word in First Corinthians as he's talking about his own ministry. And he said, when I came to you, it basically is saying I came in weakness and trembling, full of anxiety, and I made the gospel known to you, and God moved in power. And I remember thinking, if God's going to move in power in this church, it's going to be all about the gospel, all about the scriptures. And I said, okay, God, I'm going to teach the gospel, and if the church grows, I'll just know you did it. By the grace of God, we are once again at capacity in our Totowa location. Our Ringwood location is experiencing record numbers. Our children's ministry is above capacity. Our student ministries are the healthiest they've ever been. We own our facility. We once again are seeing lines down the hall at our Easter services. And once again, we're at a place where we're saying we're still in the most densely packed state in the United States that's the least reach for the gospel, and we can't just put out the no vacancy sign. We believe that puts us in this incredible season together as a church where God has positioned some things for us that we couldn't position on our own. We have the growth happening in our church as well as the building purchase, where now we believe it's our time to take a step of faith. You know, one of the things the gospel does in us is it compels us to generosity. In the gospel, we see that God went first. God gave his first and best. And so as Christians, when we ask the question, what's it look like to put him first? It causes us to respond in generosity, to respond in faith. And I believe over the next 2 years, that's the season where God's calling us to follow him and trust him, as has happened throughout the history of this church, as well as throughout the scriptures. And so I'm excited to share with you where we're headed over the next 2 years together as a church. We are about to enter into a 2-year-long discipleship and generosity journey that we're calling first, greater than all things. One of my favorite verses in the New Testament, and the verse that's really been just encouraging me as we walk towards this initiative, is when Paul writes to the Philippian church that he considers all things lost compared to the greatness of knowing Christ Jesus as Lord. And I love that, because Paul's saying when Jesus is first, when he's greater than everything else, he says it just makes everything else, even good things, look like loss compared to going after him.
For us, putting Jesus first means practicing Matthew 6:33, seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness, and by allowing him to use us in his ministry.
Yeah, our prayer is that we will lead by example, that our kids, our friends, and our family will really see that we are all in. Imagine North Jersey not sitting but serving in generosity to make room for seats so that those who are looking to start their faith journey can actually start it right here at Emergence.
For us to see this first initiative happen, there are 2 goals we hope that take place. The primary goal for us at the end of the day is 2 years from now, every person who's a Christian at Emergence took a step of faith where they said, we're taking a step of trust and obedience where Jesus is first. And that's going to affect how we live. It's going to affect our generosity. It's going to affect our courage. That our hope is that every single person takes a step of faith and says, God, we're putting you first. We're taking the step of trust that you're greater than anything else we could live for over these next 2 years. The secondary goal is where this gets practical. It's helpful to think of this in 3 different steps. The first is what we call first importance. And this is what we've always been about as a church, and this is what we'll always be about, and that is the proclamation of the gospel, whether that's through Sunday morning services or in our student ministry, in our children's ministry, in the missionaries we send out. This is the main things, the thing the church is all about. The stuff, like Paul says, this gospel is of first importance. And this is the first thing we are just committed to over these 3 years. We want to see the gospel go forward from Emergence Church as powerfully and as mightily as possible. And that will always be the thing of first importance.
Just amazing how when you abide and do what Christ asks you to do, how he blesses you, even though we're very imperfect people. You know, God calls us in the Great Commission to go and make disciples. And for us, it's important that we follow those directions. And I just want to see different faces. I want to see people of different color. I want to see people, even people who are having gender issues that are coming and just really putting things at the foot of the cross. People are struggling with their marriages. People are struggling with addictions, whatever they may or may not be. I would love to see just more and more people just worshiping and just realizing that, you know, when you realize that God is in control, there's just this peace that surpasses all understanding.
The second step is what we call first hearers. This is the step where we begin to move into some of the space that we purchased and begin to get it ready for ministry, where we build the children's ministry, where we build the student ministry, where we prepare to expand our family ministry. The truth is, over 80% of people who say they're Christians become Christians before the age of 18. Eventually, down the road, there's going to be a 12 to 1,500 seat auditorium at the church. But we first need to get the structures in place for when that's ready. We believe that God has given us the space. Now it's our job to respond and make the place for discipleship, for the gospel, for lives to be impacted. And so what this does is it calls us to a big step of faith where we say, Jesus, you're first. We think the first area we should strike and take that step of faith is in children, in student, and expanding that space there. So as future expansion happens, those areas of ministry are prepared and adequately structured.
So putting Jesus first for me is a realization and acknowledgement that everything that we have is a gift from God, whether it's our talents, our homes, our families, and our life circumstances, including our careers. So everything that we have, including financially, is from God, and we are just stewards of what he has given us. So I believe that God will open yet more doors and allow Emergence to grow in ways that even now people can't imagine.
The third step of the secondary goal is what we call first steps. First steps is where we begin to make space for those who are coming onto this church campus for the first time, whether that be space for starting point or membership, discover Emergence, an opportunity for people to take those first steps of discipleship, those first steps of response to the gospel. It also is where we will begin to take the process of renovating our lobby space. It's just amazing to look at where we are right now. It just feels like at every step along the way as a church, we, by the grace of God, get to see the room fill up and people come to Christ. And every time we think, wow, we're full, we just say we can't put out the no vacancy. There's still too many people that don't know Jesus. And every time the people respond in faith, God moves again. And it just feels like we're here again, and we're going to ask the question, what does it look like in your life to say, okay, God, more than anything else I could accomplish over the next 2 years in my life, what I really want to accomplish is to put you first. I want to affect my faith and my discipleship and my generosity. I want to look different 2 years from now. This is all about Jesus. This is all about the glory of God, that no one's interested in making Emergence Church look great, but I get excited about making Jesus look great. And I just want to ask us to pray boldly. God, give me courage to trust you. I know you're faithful. I want to see you move. And then together, let's let's trust the God who can do more than all we could ask or imagine. Let's say, God, we want you to be first.